Hello there. General Kenobi. Welcome to the second episode of Screen Chronicles. I'm Steve.
And I'm Coldstone.
Switch that, reverse it. Today,
never mind. I'm Steve.
I'm Colby. And if you haven't figured this out already, today we're discussing the Star Wars Prequel Trilogy.
And what movies make up the Prequel Trilogy, Colby?
The Prequel Trilogy consists of The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and The Revenge of the Sith. Episodes 1, 2, and 3.
I am so pumped to talk about these. I'm glad we got into these. I really like these. So
yes.
I think into the spoilers. I really like these movies. I think if you're a Star Wars fan, they're a must-watch. I think if you're just a movie fan, I think you might need to see the original trilogy first to get you hooked into these.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think, now that ever since the prequels came out, it's always been a debate. Oh, what do you start with now? Go in chronological orders of the movies, or do you start with the originals? I always say start with the originals. And my number one reason overall why is because the biggest spoiler, almost in cinema history, is episode 5 with, by the way, spoilers if you haven't seen Star Wars.
Spoiler alert, everyone.
Some reason, the typical "I am your father" is such an awesome moment, Mm-hmm. But when you watch for the prequels, then you don't really get that singular moment of "I am your father." You get an awesome storyline of how Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader, and it's so cool to see how that develops.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's better once you've met Darth Vader and you know what's coming, compared to starting with the prequel. So I just actually started watching them with my girlfriend, and we did start episodes New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, just for that reason. And she didn't know anything about Star Wars. So
she hadn't seen the original trilogy before.
Well, she hadn't even seen the original trilogy.
Oh, okay.
So she was and she didn't even know. A lot of people, even if they haven't seen Star Wars, know who Darth Vader is and have heard the line "I am your father." But so I actually almost spoiled it.
You did.
A quick story before we get into the prequels.
Yeah, go ahead.
We were watching the originals. Actually, almost spoiled that. We watched episode 4, which she didn't love. And I was kind of nervous she wasn't going to want to watch the rest, but then she watched episodes 5 and 6, loved them. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, she's like, Darth Vader reminds me of Emperor Zurg from Toy Story with, Buzz Lightyear. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep, I know exactly.
And so I said to her, I was like, yeah, well, I think Darth Vader was kind of the inspiration for that character. Yeah. And she was like, nah, no way. So I was like, I'm pretty sure. So I looked it up online, and it does say that they take the lines from Star Wars word for word, like Darth Vader's lines. Mm-hmm. And that's all I said to her. I was like, yeah, look, they actually take the Star Wars script. Oh, and she's like, oh, you mean when he says to Buzz, "I am your father"? And I was like, oh no, not that part. No. It's like, no, not that part.
No, that one's completely different.
That one's completely different.
But did she know Vader was Luke's dad then? Did she know that?
So I did cover it up pretty good. I was like, no, No, she didn't know. She was surprised when she watched it. No, she was surprised.
Okay, cool.
So I thought even if you haven't seen the movies, you've heard it somewhere in some capacity, but
no,
she hasn't. So anyway, now she wants to watch the rest, and I don't think it really matters if we go back and watch the prequels now. I think we could go 7, 8, 9 now, especially because Rise of Skywalker's coming out on Friday, and that way she could go see it if she wants in the theater while it's out instead of going back and watching the prequels right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Toy Story almost ruined the big surprise.
Zurg and Buzz Lightyear almost spoiled Darth Vader and Luke. That's funny.
Not the way I expected it to be spoiled, but
we're talking prequels today. We'll definitely get more into the original trilogy. So we're actually watching them for the point of this podcast in chronological order.
Yes.
But I know the order of how they're released what kind of throws a lot of people who weren't already Star Wars fans off.
Yes.
So I'm just going to cover that real quick. Is that the original trilogy, the movies with Darth Vader saying, spoiler alert again, no,
well, they've been warned already.
Yeah. Those three released in the late 70s and the 80s. So they were originally released as what's now called Episode 4, 5, and 6. Was just originally Star Wars was the first one. Then it was Empire Strikes Back, and then it was Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And then they were relabeled then once George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, was gonna release the prequel trilogy to show how Darth Vader became the man in the mask. They were relabeled then as Episode 4, 5, and 6. And the original one that was called Star Wars was relabeled as Star Wars A New Hope. And then they were all Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, Return of the Jedi.
If I had a nickel for every time I've had to explain that.
Yeah, it's really confused my girlfriend, because when we started dating, I took her to Rogue One first, because I was like, all right, well, you've seen Darth Vader, so I guess you'll kind of know. So Rogue One's like a prequel. It's in between Episode 3 and 4. It's right before Episode 4. That was the first one she saw, and then the movie I really hate is The Last Jedi. I took her to that. She liked it, so I'm glad she liked it, so I could keep getting her put into Star Wars. But then she was so turned around. She's like, so where's Darth Vader in this? And because that's Episode 7. So the original trilogy, the ones with Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, they were released 1970s into the 80s, and then George Lucas went back and Episode 1, 2, and 3, the ones we're talking about today. The first one, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was released May 19th, 1999. Episode 2, May 16th, 2002. And Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, was May 19th, 2005. So, and then the sequel trilogy, the new ones with the new cast, they were released just recently in this past decade here, and with Rise of Skywalker coming out this Friday, December 20th, 2019.
Yes.
So it jumped around. It was the original, prequel, sequel. So
and we're sorry for that, for those of you who are not into it.
But we are going chronological since we've already seen them all.
Yes.
To watch these. So I guess now that we got that all figured out, we're going to get into the spoiler talk and talk about all that. But I guess my first question for you is, how did you first see them all, and what was Star Wars to you when you were growing up?
I think my parents were introducing it to me. I mean, they liked Star Wars growing up, and it was coming out when we were kids. I mean, Revenge of the Sith came out when I was 10, so you must have been like 18 when it came out.
And, I looked at it. Yeah, I was 11 going on 12 when Revenge of the Sith came out, 2005.
Right.
And I was 6 when.
So it was coming out like when we were kids. There's everything.
Yeah, we were kids. That was our
childhood.
Yeah, when we were growing up.
It was everything. Legos.
Had you
getting a lightsaber was the best.
Before that?
Yeah, they started me with the original trilogy. Yeah, and then I remember seeing Phantom Menace. I think my neighbor showed it to me, if I remember correctly. I was young, but it was already out on VHS when I saw that. And then Attack of the Clones, I believe I went to see in theater, and then obviously Revenge of the Sith I went to see in theater. Now, I remember we just did our Joker episode and talked about some controversy heading into a movie.
Exactly.
I don't know if you remember when Revenge of the Sith came out, Episode 3, the controversy that was surrounded with that movie. And I remember my dad talking to me about going to see it and about telling me about what happens in it. We'll get into that a little bit later in the episode, because it's a darker movie. But there's a little bit of concern for kids seeing it, and I was 10. And I saw it, and it was one of the greatest movies I ever saw. But we'll get to that later.
When I saw Episode 3 in theaters, that's what got me into wanting to see movies in theater. Because before, when I was a kid, I don't think I really cared whether it was on TV or in the theater. I liked seeing movies, but I remember seeing that one just boom and explosions, and I guess I was like right at the age too when I could get like emotional impact. And that one, I mean, that's still one of my favorite Star Wars, even today, is Episode 3.
I think when we watched all these, now a lot of the prequel trilogy is about politics a little bit. Is what's setting the stage for the new Empire and the demise of the Jedi. Ultimately, is a lot of political kind of things going on behind the scenes, and I think all that stuff went over my head when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on any of that. I didn't get any of that storyline when I was first seeing it. In fact,
didn't matter.
Yeah, and when I was seeing Episode 3, Palpatine being the evil Emperor was like mind blowing to me. I was like, what?
I know,
it was him the whole time, the Emperor. Like, dude, and now I look at him like it's so obvious.
It's so obvious. And when I watch him with my girlfriend, I'm gonna wait to see, because not much gets by her, so I'm gonna wait to see when she figures it out. Because they pretty much in there's a scene in the Phantom Menace at the end of the movie when Mace Windu and Yoda are talking at Qui-Gon's funeral, and they're like, they're talking about how powerful this new Sith Lord must be, and the camera just pans to Palpatine and focuses on him for a second, and the music.
Only two there are, a master and apprentice. So which one did we kill, the master or the apprentice? And it goes right to Palpatine.
Right to Palpatine. And I'm like, how did I not?
I know. When I was a kid, I was just like, why are they showing him? But now I'm just like, oh, like they're like telling you this is the Emperor. And it's the same actor, too. It's the same actor who plays Palpatine, Ian McDiarmid. Am I saying that right? I think so. I think that's the right name. But it's the same actor in these prequel movies for the Emperor as who played the Emperor in Return of the Jedi.
Wasn't there another one originally? Or was it him? Because it looked different, at least.
No, it was him in Return of the Jedi, but in The Empire Strikes Back, where the hologram when he's talking to Vader, that was like a weird mask, crappy looking thing. So when no, it was not him.
It was not him. Okay.
No, he wasn't cast yet until Return of the Jedi.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's pretty cool that like they.
I'm glad that they changed that too in the original trilogy, and we'll talk about that too when we get into that. But I'm glad that they made that change. I know a lot of people were hate on these movies, the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And what about you? Do you have any big hate or complain with them? Or
I don't personally. I mean, I think it's partially because these are my childhood movies, man. These are what got me excited.
That's what we grew up on. Like I think the people that complain about these, they're the ones that are the original.
Yeah.
And we grew up on these, so it's like it's really hard for us. I can
kind of see where they're coming from. Now, if you watch some of the behind the scenes of Phantom Menace, there's like George Lucas is like sweating about how he didn't think the movie was very good. Like they're in the late screenings of it and they're watching it. Have you seen any of these?
I did see this. I only just saw, I think what you're talking about within the past year or two is when George Lucas just saw the Phantom Menace for the first time in a screening with the producer and everything like that.
First cut. The first cut.
And he was just like, how did this happen? How did it was like, and he's like, how was it not good? Like, and they're just like, I don't know. And I was just, I don't know. I still think it's good. I think some of the acting is a little dry. I know Liam Neeson can really bring it, and in episode
God, Liam Neeson was fantastic.
Yeah, he was a little flat though at parts in the first one. He's just kind of real even. He's not bringing.
Yeah, well, isn't that what a Jedi is?
That's what I was just gonna say. Is I wonder though if that was the direction he was given. Though was no, you're a Jedi.
And that's the thing
this
about
is
Jedi.
The Jedi at the height of their power. They're all very balanced.
Jedi's personality theoretically should be kind of boring. They're not supposed to get super passionate about stuff. They're not. You know what I mean? They're not supposed to get attached to things and. I don't know. To me, he created like a feeling of like, I don't know what the word is. When he was on screen, though, it just like felt like he was in control. He had a presence, and he
seemed like he was a real master, experienced Jedi. He was
he just seemed so sure of himself all the time.
You knew that he's seen a lot and he's done a lot, but he was still sure in who he was and
yes.
his mission, and he knew right from wrong very easily. But his big mistake, though, I guess, or was it a mistake, was making sure that Anakin became a Jedi.
Well, okay, so yeah, this always comes up as like, okay, Qui-Gon, what if he never found him? What if they didn't even go to Tatooine to get parts for that ship, you know?
Yeah.
And what if like he never found Anakin? None of that ever happened. My argument sort of is that maybe the Emperor would have found Anakin, and just that would have been easy. It'd be like, okay, I'll free you, I'll free your mother. The Emperor, maybe he could have sensed how powerful Anakin was, because Anakin, there's no doubt Anakin is one of the most force-sensitive beings ever in the Star Wars universe.
And the first movie too, one of the things that a lot of people are mad about is that Anakin's mom kind of alludes to that he was sort of a divine conception.
Yeah,
it's like there was no father. I raised him.
He was forged.
That he was like forced
by the Force.
Yeah, the Force made him. I think a lot of people, interpret that 100% literally, but even Qui-Gon's like, he may have been conceived by the Force when he's like calling in. So I almost wonder if, maybe she was kind of just saying, maybe there was a guy involved, but he wasn't a father. He was, the baby daddy, and then she's the only one that's been in his life. She's been the, the slave, and he's been the slave. I leave it open. Do you not like that though? That Darth Vader was born of the Force, or how do you feel about that?
Conflicted a little bit about it. I almost, there's been theories about Palpatine actually having a hand somehow of, creating Anakin somehow. Some deep fan theories. So it wasn't just by happenstance that Anakin was born. There's theories like that. It's hard to say.
He's very smart and patient, Sidious, and that's how he as a Sith, was able to take over when other Sith in the past, if you're really deep into Star Wars nerds as we are, other Sith in the past, just tried to assault and lead attacks and everything, and they never won. But I mean, he ends up, spoiler alert, he ends up taking over. He ends up dissolving this republic and making an empire. Yeah. Which is something I'll talk about again too.
He orchestrates all this stuff. He's orchestrating everything. I mean,
so I can see him doing that for Anakin.
He attacks on Naboo. He's in charge. He's in charge of the Trade Federation in Episode 1, and yet he's also from Naboo, and those are like his people, and and he's the senator from Naboo in Episode 1. But he's orchestrating all this stuff by playing both roles, and so who knows as far as where Anakin comes from, if Palpatine had anything to do with that. But I mean, so as far as Qui-Gon finding, first of all, like, it's part of the story in general. So maybe it was just happenstance. It needs to happen, and maybe it was just happenstance that they found this kid, and wow, he's super powerful with the Force, And another thing people don't like too are the midi-chlorian concept. What's your opinion about that?
I'll admit I don't like the midi-chlorian. I like the sort of Episode 5 Empire Strikes Back version of the Force. It's when Yoda's explaining it binds us all. It's this thing that connects, and that's one of my reasons I love that movie, is just that the Force is this. It's not like a thing that you can explain with science. That's what Star Wars has always been to me. It's not a science fiction. It's more of a fantasy in space, and that they have hyperspace and all these things, and they never try and explain. Well, it's the warp drive with these things that's how we get it's just the way it is, and so I like that the Force was just this thing that you didn't have to explain with microbiology, So I guess one thing I didn't like. How about you?
I'm not as against it, and I guess it's because I don't really look at the midi-chlorians as being the Force itself. I look at them as kind of being like something that shows how Force sensitive a person is. You know what I mean?
kind of like
something in their
body.
Sort of like it's not, yeah, exactly, something like
that shows
you can
that
get from a
vaccine,
blood test and shows like how force sensitive somebody has, like the potential of being.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I kind of look at it, which because we don't really, I mean, know exactly how. We know for one thing that the power of the force is kind of sent through from, passed from parent to offspring.
Yes. Yeah.
We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 8 tries to tell us that it could be anybody who has it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, somebody who's part of a certain lineage.
Yeah. I've heard other things that like they've inferred that like other great characters within the Star Wars universe who weren't force users or Jedi were like force sensitive, and that's why they were so good. Like so I
some
guess
people think Han
like
Solo is force sensitive.
Yeah, like
I've heard
Han
that.
Solo, Padme.
Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a Jedi.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I mean, yeah. So it's like, so do they have midichlorians that they, I don't know. I like that it's vague though, and I like the mystery, and that's what I like. So that is my one complaint, I guess, is
midichlorians.
The midichlorians there.
Okay. All right, and it's very, I've heard both sides of it. Actually, I probably heard far more against than for, but I think if you take it not so that like if you have midichlorians, that means you have like a lot of force power. It just means like you're more predisposed, I guess.
Yeah, if you're not looking at it like a Dragon Ball Z power level kind of thing, if you're looking at it more as sort of indicating that there's definite force potential in you, I can see where you're coming from, and I guess I would like it better like that, if I guess, so that's how I would imagine it then. Mm-hmm. I don't need them. I don't really need the force explained anymore though.
And they didn't need to. They never needed to explain it.
No,
I mean, they needed to. They honestly could have just been like, he seems very, powerful with the force or something.
I really like feel that. Things with the force, and they even said like, his midichlorian count is higher than Yoda's, and it's like, no.
Wow.
Or like, and again, so if it's just like a potential,
he was the chosen one,
well, that you can access, or and what does the force mean? Does it mean your power level, or does it mean like how much of the universe sort of revolves around you and what you do makes an impact? You know what I mean? That's sort of existential.
Or is it your belief in the force that allows you to manipulate your surroundings? And there's that too, because I don't, not to jump into the sequel trilogy, but I don't know what Rian Johnson exactly was going for, if he just meant it could be anybody at random, or if he just meant anybody could use it.
Again, I've only seen The Last Jedi once, so I don't remember.
I've seen it a few times now. Not that I have a desire to watch it again. We'll get to that, to the sequels. We could probably do a whole episode on how much we didn't really enjoy The Last Jedi. But we'll definitely, we are still, I have our hopes up for episode 9, which comes out Friday. So anyway, back to the prequels. Another thing people don't like about episode 1 and carrying on into the next couple is a certain character named Jar Jar Binks.
Oh no. I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, I thought he was the most hilarious thing.
Yeah. I still think he's funny.
Dying laughing. I remember when he gets his face in the the pod racer thing, and like I remember just dying, and his tongue and his hands in there. I was
stuck in there,
dying laughing.
Yeah,
like he was like one of my favorite characters, and that's one thing is George Lucas said that he has said that Star Wars was always made for kids. That's what he's like. What he was saying to haters, and I don't think that's 100% true when you look at things where arms are coming off and people getting burned alive.
Episode 3 was not made for kids. I'm sorry.
Well, I was looking when I was watching episode 2 recently too, Attack of the Clones, which I also love. That gets a lot of hate. I mean, But like Anakin gets his arm lopped off, and when he's at Geonosis, and he's like on that like assembly line, and he's like fighting all the Geonosian, like those are sentient creatures. He's like chopping in half, and like the conveyor belts are like mashing down, and like the camera doesn't cut or anything. Like you see them get like mashed into the metal. Oh. I mean, it's not like an awesome like a bloody R-rated brutal thing. Like
I gotta say though,
like it's still not like watching Snow White or something, you know.
There's that stuff in movies. I mean, I don't know. It is fantasy, you know, but yeah, you know, they do put certain characters into these films, you know, targeted at kids and targeted at making people laugh. And
I still like Jar Jar Binks way more than Ewoks in Episode 6.
Yeah, Ewoks are kind of silly.
I hated Ewoks when I was a kid. I hated them when I was a child.
It's a little bit for me a little cringy to watch an Ewok throw a rocket at the stormtrooper's head and then have them just completely fly back.
Oh my god, the Galaxy Police. Anyway, I'll rant about that in our next episode. But Jar Jar Binks, I don't hate him, and I feel bad that the poor actor who played him was getting all this hate. And because I mean, he's a great guy. And people were saying that like it was racist or something too with Jar Jar Binks. So I don't know. I feel bad for the
goofy
guy. Though.
Character. I mean,
I thought he was
called racist, but then they go down and find his whole species, and everybody there is like just as is like super capable.
Yeah, there's my girlfriend sneaking by him.
You can walk through town. Or is that how she normally walks through the kitchen?
That's how she just always walks around the house.
Oh, okay.
So we were talking about Jar Jar Binks, and so I didn't hate him. I thought he was funny. I thought in Episode 2, when he becomes he
fills in for Padme as the senator.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have
gone
been
over,
very logical.
Yeah, there's a lot of other people they could have picked.
The politician's gone. What about the clumsy guy?
Clumsy, silly guy. I don't know.
But I think they could have had anyone. But I think George Lucas almost did that on purpose, just because of all the hate that he was getting for having Jar Jar Binks. And he was like, you know what? This is the guy that's gonna give the Chancellor emergency powers. You know, this is gonna be him. That's who's gonna do it. I thought he was funny though.
He was funny, and honestly, dude, he's probably a Sith Lord secretly. For everybody who doesn't know, there's a fan theory that's actually gained a lot of traction.
This was back when I think Last Jedi was coming out, and they were wondering who Snoke was.
And who, by the way, we still don't know, and probably never will know.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson
has no idea. Thank you very much for that. And that Jar Jar Binks was secretly a Sith Lord the whole time, and they created this whole thread, and they have all these little bits of evidence, and I'll just go through a couple points right now, and just see what you think. Maybe.
Yeah, let's hear. And there's a whole YouTube video out there too. If you start YouTubing Jar Jar Binks Sith Lord or something, you'll see.
Tell Taylor go ahead to crawl on the floor. By the way.
Say what? She's funny.
So Jar Jar Binks, first of all, he's extremely clumsy, and yet when he jumps into the water, when they originally take Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to the Gungan City, he does this incredible, like, I don't know how many flips he does in the air, dive,
like 18 feet in the air.
He got 9.5s. If it was a diving competition.
Standing vertical jump, like 18 feet in the air,
and just flipping, and it's so precise, yet he trips over his own ears. So no, but then, okay, so there's one example. Another example is, you remember when they're in Naboo and they're sneaking around and they have to jump down from this bridge, this walking bridge that's above.
Oh yeah.
And gets caught. And gets caught when he's jumping down, like looking clumsy, like he couldn't, even jump down. Well, if you watch from one angle from below the bridge, you see he comes down the opposite side of the bridge that he jumped off of. And so this person's argument is that oh, was this a filming mistake, or did he use a force jump and like propel from one side to the other, and like
probably that.
Probably that.
Because that's what Jedi have. All their, if you'll see them jump from high cliffs and stuff, and they're human, and that's what allows them to survive. Though it's not because they're robots; it's the Force. So they're trying to say that the Force, Jar Jar has to have some if he's doing all these crazy acrobatic things.
And then another point is that he gets too lucky. Too often is he lucky for it to actually be luck. So talking about the battle on Naboo now between the droid army and the Gungan army.
Okay.
Where Jar Jar is he has no place in a battle. But he somehow gets like half of a droid like caught on his foot. Do you remember this? It gets like tangled on his foot. But he's like ducking from other shots and he's accidentally shooting other droids.
He's missing blaster shots, which are like dodging bullets.
Yes, he's missing blaster shots while shooting other droids with the gun that the droid has that's tangled on his foot. And if you watch it, somebody compared it to an actual martial arts fighting style that was done. I don't know if you've heard of this. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't heard of it.
No, there's a video of it. You'll have to check it out. It's called the Drunken Warrior fighting style.
Oh, like Jackie Chan.
It wasn't Jackie Chan, I don't think. It was just I don't know who it was, but somebody did it like a tutorial of it. It looked like it was shot a long time ago, and it's this guy who's like fighting but pretending to be drunk sort of movements, you know what I mean? And if you compare it to Jar Jar in that scene, it's like you could see it. You could see it. You could see it. So
meet the Sith Lord.
So it's kind of funny, and he kind of rises to power in the Senate alongside Palpatine.
He goes
so who knows?
Being maybe
Jar Jar's in Rise of Skywalker, because do we know he vanished? He rose. He became. He was in the Senate.
I don't know if that would make everyone mad or really happy.
It would piss everyone off.
I don't know.
It might even piss me off. I'd laugh a lot, but
I would just love at the beginning because they've been hinting at that Palpatine returns in this new movie, and it would just be great if they just twist it around and it's Jar Jar Binks. And he's doing and he has like a Palpatine recorder voice or something.
That'd be amazing.
Oh my god!
I hope it is. I hope it is. I hope one of the Knights of Ren take their helmet off and it's Jar Jar Binks.
Yes. Oh, speaking of Jar Jar Binks, who's a Gungan, the latest Mandalorian episode 2, where Mando is with, spoilers for Mandalorian here. Mando's with the group of mercenaries on a ship.
Yeah.
And Bill Burr's character, the bald human, he's like, what's under your mask? Are you a Gungan?
Yeah.
And
they all like snicker, right?
Are you scared to take your helmet off? Or he says something.
I wanted to bring this up to you. I'm really glad you said that, because that was the one I forgot. And I was going to mention that this new episode of Mandalorian had 2 like typical Star Wars jokes that for the first time were actually addressed in like any canon thing of Star Wars. And the first, you just said the one I forgot, but the first one was making fun of stormtroopers shooting. And so there was a point, you remember this?
Yeah. He was an Imperial sharpshooter.
And Mando's like,
that doesn't mean anything.
Much. Yeah.
And he's like, listen here, wise ass. I wasn't a
stormtrooper. And I was just like, oh my god, that's awesome.
That was hilarious.
I love that they did that. Yeah, and then I was like, what was the other? There was 2 things that they made fun of from former Star Wars, like stereotypical jokes. One, that stormtroopers can't hit anything, which is so true. And 2, that
was it the Gungan thing?
The Gungan thing, making fun of a Gungan. And I forgot about that one, so I'm so glad you said that. And I thought it was hilarious. By the way, great episode of Mandalorian. If you're not watching The Mandalorian by now, get on it. It's so worth it.
We're definitely gonna have an episode after it all comes out. We'll probably binge it again, and then we'll talk about it.
Some people are throwing shade on The Mandalorian, by the way.
Say what?
Some people are throwing shade on that.
How so?
On The Mandalorian. Some people are upset that it seems like they're just doing like episode by episode, and there's not like a deep storyline?
I think a few people are kind of disappointed by that, but I like that. I mean, I'm still
enjoying it so much.
It's still an overarching story with the Baby Yoda creature.
Who is it? Where'd it come from?
Yeah, and I think that's going to tie, into something. But I like that I think people are used to, such a overarching story. That people are so used to that they forget, like, a lot of TV. One of the things that's best about TV episodes for me, a lot of episodes I like Star Trek Next Generation. I liked Burn Notice. There was a lot of TV shows that I liked before everything got so like a continuous storyline, that were episodic, that they had a beginning story and an end, throughout the episode. But there were still parts that would carry over into the next episode, and I think that's what this is, and I like it. I like that.
Yeah. I will say though, back to the stormtrooper
Stormtrooper.
That it is so true.
Which is
so true.
Which is so weird too, because the clone troopers and the prequel trilogy that we're talking about, they are like the best warriors.
Right, but I don't
they're
think...
they're expert, like shooting everything. They look so badass.
Right, but I don't think the stormtroopers are clones though.
I think a lot. So I remember back when I was really digging into clones thing. I think they are clones, but I think they're not all like pure Jango Fett clones.
So I heard that they were decommissioned after the Clone Wars.
I think that a lot of them were clones, and that some of them aren't, or something. But I think George Lucas meant for it to be, clones? Mostly clones to some degree, because I think that's how he wanted to explain like how such a large army came to be.
It would make sense if they were clones.
Again, I love that too. That's what I like about the prequels, is how they explain that in such like a natural way. That Palpatine, who's playing both sides of this war, then orchestrates a need for this giant army,
right,
that the Republic just begs to have, and then that he ends up using to oppress the rest of the galaxy then.
Yeah, and to go back...
I just love...
Just to give a little brief overview of the history of how the clones got started, we find this out in episode 2. Obi-Wan was trying to find this planet that's missing from the records. Got erased by somebody, probably a Jedi, he thinks. So he goes to the location, finds that there's a clone army that's been commissioned by another Jedi named Sifo-Dyas. Mm-hmm. So apparently, I did a little research into this. Sifo-Dyas commissioned this army. He had one of his gifts was the power of foresight, and he could see pretty far into the future. And he saw a conflict in the future where the Republic may need an army. Mm. I think like a lot of Jedi can kind of have a little bit of a vision of the future to different degrees, but Yoda mentions at one point in I think episode 5 that the future's always moving, so it's hard to really see exactly what it is going to be.
Yes.
But with Sifo-Dyas, that was one of his strong points. So he goes and commissions his army, doesn't tell anybody, erases it from the map. He died on a ship. Then there was somebody else on the ship that Darth Sidious and Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, actually like found this guy that was on the ship. Sifo-Dyas died. This guy knew about the plans, so they went and funded these already created plans for a clone army. And they found Jango Fett. So that's why Jango Fett steps up to Obi-Wan saying like that he's never heard of Sifo-Dyas. I'm pretty sure he's being honest. I don't think he'd ever heard of him because he was approached by Tyrannus. He says he's like, I was approached by a guy named Tyrannus, who is Count Dooku.
Yeah, that's his Darth Tyrannus is like his Sith name.
So Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine, I think, stumbled across this clone army by chance. And Darth Tyrannus together, they were already together, and that was so the clone army was commissioned 10 years before the Clone Wars, which they do say in the movie. They do say
they do say it. One thing though, like you said, that always confused me because I didn't know this backstory. Is this Jedi that isn't in any of the movies, Master Sifo-Dyas.
They do say his name.
They say he's the one that ordered the army, and
they do say his name.
They never explain, who this is to anyone. And Obi-Wan's like, oh, he died 10 years ago. So I always just kind of assumed when I was watching it that like Palpatine funded this or something, and that it was like a pseudonym. Or that they just faked his identity and Dooku did it or something. So I never understood that.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia,
that's never explained.
Yeah, so they might address it. They might address it in the Clone Wars, because when I went and looked up Sifo-Dyas, there was like an animated character of him, which I've only seen parts of the Clone Wars.
I've seen a lot of episodes from that series, which is like supposed to take place between Attack the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, when the actual Clone Wars are happening, between the clones of the Republic and the droids from the Separatist army. So I like that they fleshed that out, because that's a lot of rich history too. That's what I like about the prequels, is they really flesh out. They talk about the Clone Wars in the original trilogy, and I like that they flesh that out and they make it something. And
I refer to it almost like we would refer to World War II or something. Like, oh yeah, my grandfather fought in World War II, and like they say like, oh, I think he fought with him in the Clone Wars.
Exactly, and it's such a mind trick too, that like if you look at like the war, it didn't really matter at all, because Darth Sidious was the one playing both sides. So all these people in this conflict, or my dad helped out in the Clone Wars, or he was a Jedi. It was they were fighting. The same.
They all had the same master.
Darth Sidious, who was just he was like, I'm gonna win either way. So
yeah,
which is another thing that I love about these movies. Like I said, was Darth Sidious, and that's a good segue for me here. Like how we talk about here on our channel, we like to have stories that we bring up, and how real life history sort of influences things. So so Palpatine, his rise to power is he's this senator from Naboo who orchestrates this blockade in Episode 1 with the Trade Federation. And then Padme was like, oh, I need to get my people saved. So then she's like, well, I vote for him to be chancellor. So now he's chancellor for this thing that he orchestrated. And then once he's chancellor, the Separatist army in Episode 2 starts to form to go to war with the Republic. And then he's like, hey, Jar Jar Binks, I need more power. Only if someone could vote for me to have what they call emergency power or something like that. Yeah. And then so he gets that, and then eventually in Episode 3,
and he's all like, by the way, he's all like, I don't want this really, but I will use it, and I will give it back right when I'm done.
Exactly. And then Episode 3 comes around, and he's like, now we're an empire, and he eventually disbands the Senate and the original trilogy, but so he turns this republic into an empire, and he does it without actually having to physically fight anyone, other than in Episode 3 when people start to catch on. And he does Order 66 to wipe out the rest of the Jedi, which is also awesome.
You even see it in the little things, like in Episode 2 when Padme, there's a couple, the movie begins with somebody trying to assassinate Senator Amidala. She's no longer Queen of Naboo. I guess they had terms for Queen, 2-year terms or something, which so she's senator, and somebody tried to blow up her ship. Somebody tried to they show them trying to kill her in her room with these centipede things.
Oh yeah, those were creepy too.
God, that scene. Ugh. But anyway, but you see the one part in that where he's just like, why don't you have Obi-Wan go and take care of it? Knowing that Anakin he's just forging this. He's like, well, you got to get Anakin and Padme close together.
Exactly. And then he knows that's what's going to trick him to the dark side.
Yeah, because he knows he's got feelings. He's had a childhood crush on Padme, and and he's just exploiting Anakin's feelings, and ultimately that's the reason why. Because in the end, for those of you who don't know, he pretty much the convincing factor for Anakin is like the promise that I can save your wife from certain death when she gives birth, and that's like his big thing. He wants to save Padme's life, and that's like amongst other. That's not the only thing, but he's also just polluting Anakin's mind this whole time that the Jedi don't like you, they don't respect you, they're never going to respect you. This is all before Anakin even realizes who Palpatine is. He's just feeding his head with like, they don't trust you,
And in a part though they don't, because in the first movie they sense how conflicted he is because he just left his mom behind. Right. He just left his mother, Shmi Skywalker, still a slave on Tatooine. When he goes away he's freed now and a Jedi. So he's thinking about his mom. He's a little kid. I mean, same thing, if you were taken away from your mom as a little kid, even if you got to be a Jedi, you'd be like, well, I never get to see my mom again. You'd be thinking about her. Because the other Jedi, they're so young when they're put into the order. Right. That it's not really something that they miss or worry about.
That's why the Jedi Council's just warning. It's too old. It's too old.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
and then when his mom is captured by Tusken Raiders, another scene that I love, even though it's terrible. His mom's captured. She's bloody, cut up. Everyone had given up that she was already dead.
It's just a huge stepping point toward Vader. Yep. It's such a huge stepping point.
And I love it though, because I think it's so human and natural for it to be a reason why you'd want to be more powerful and why you resent the Jedi for having this code restricting you from doing stuff. And then he finds his mom.
Honestly, though, too.
I always get a little emotional when I see that scene because I'm just like, I cannot imagine finding my mom after years and then she's saying this and she's like, "You're so handsome," and it's just like, oh my god.
Yep.
And he just wipes out all those Tusken Raiders, which is not an easy kill, even for a Jedi. He kills them all.
Yeah,
not the men, not just the men,
but the women and the children too. Which
great meme.
Become a great meme.
Great meme too, but I think it's a great line. A lot of people rip on that line. I love it.
I think some memes are made fun of because it's a silly thing, but a lot of memes come from like awesome moments, the most memorable moments of it. Like.
And he was having visions that she was going to die too, and and he was trying to wait and not act on them, and then in episode 3 comes around, he starts having visions about Padme, which I almost wonder if Palpatine was sort of like sending him, to kind of push him over. You need to start worrying about your wife here, and then so that's what really pushes him to the point of like, I can't take these rules anymore. I'm going full out. I need to do what, and Palpatine again makes himself the answer. He tells him the story of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Great scene.
Great scene.
Let me take a quick break because I think I need to get my charger, and then we'll be back.
Okay. So we had talked about how Darth Sidious, how he took over as this Sith Lord from the inside of this democratic republic and how he made it an empire, which is what everyone knows in the original trilogy, the Empire. I thought this was really brilliant, but this has actually happened a lot throughout history. One of the things that I found when I was looking stuff up is that George Lucas was he was studied a lot of, I think it's anthropology, the study of like human cultures and how they arise and stuff. But so there are 3 big names that sort of inspired this. It's a pattern that just happens throughout time, is how these emperors come out of these democracies. It's not through war, it's just through these passive means. And the first one, Julius Caesar, and Rome was a republic prior to him becoming an emperor or sort of a dictator. In the past, it had kings and stuff, but he actually took over. He was having all these military victories, and then when he comes back, the country wasn't doing so hot. But he started giving land to the poor, things like that, and he was there was a lot of civil war going on, much like in this movie, how there's this separatist versus republic war, and then he ends up getting emergency powers voted to him. Yeah, much just like in this movie. And actually, dictator in the Roman times actually means to be given temporary emergency powers in wartime.
Okay.
So that's where that sort of term comes from.
Who granted him the powers? Did he have long floppy ears?
It might have been. But then he eventually I've seen a few things saying he made himself dictator. I saw some things saying that the Senate voted for him, or the people sort of made it happen, but he eventually became dictator perpetuo, which is like a dictator for life or without any reign. So I saw a few different sources, but like his reign for like dictator reign was about 3 years, from 47 to 44 BCE or BC, whatever time period you want to use. But and then we all know about the conspiracy. He was killed on the Ides of March in 44 BC. It's pretty similar, to the movie.
You definitely see where George Lucas may have drawn that inspiration from.
Exactly.
Yeah. A
second one, Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yeah.
And he was an emperor from 1804 to 1814, AD or CE, or whatever terminologies you want to use. And again, he was this successful military leader. The French government at the time, the Directory, was replaced with this 3-member consult, and then he eventually made himself the head consult. But then he had a lot of wars going on, and he ended up losing. But he actually survived. He was sent off to, Italy. He was given a small country. So he actually made it out alive. And then the next one is probably a lot of people probably pick up on, inspired. The original trilogy was Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. And the same thing with him. He was this political leader in the Nazi Party. And then he got emergency powers after this fire at the Reichstag fire of 1933, which is, the Reichstag is like their parliament, their German parliament there. There was a fire, and then everyone thought the communists were doing this, so everyone got scared, much like how people were scared in the prequels here about the Civil War going on, and he was giving emergency powers then. It's pretty crazy that all these things. Hitler, though, fortunately didn't have a happy ending, though. And he was also killed. He killed himself, actually. But I'll have links to all these things. We'll put them in the description or something. We're going to have our stuff up on something. So we'll find this out so you can see my sources here. So I'm not just pulling things out my butt. But I think that was pretty cool.
I think there's a lot of great stories that are drawn from real historical events. I think you could find it in Lord of the Rings. I think you could find it in Harry Potter. I think you can find these parallels to real world stories. I think a lot of them go back to World War II because it's the most recent, relatable, absolute, hard to believe it actually happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a real pattern throughout history, though, because even the BCE, like I said, Julius Caesar. That was, like I said, that was like 44 BCE, and then what I say? I said,
history repeats itself.
Yeah, Napoleon, 1804 to 1814, and then Adolf Hitler, 1933. That's when he was given
and Palpatine
the Supreme Chancellor to
Palpatine 1945. Did this way before any of these guys.
He was actually the original one.
It was
a long time ago. A very long time ago. Yeah. He was a couple galaxies over too, is what I've heard.
Yeah, not too far. Not too far.
No,
but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Because I think it's such a genius thing how it happens, but I wonder if it was sort of mundane for George Lucas to just be like, well, I mean, I've seen it like 1,000 times when I was studying, history.
Anthropology, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool. That is cool. And it even happens in a society where these powers exist and these technologies exist. And it still happens through the politics and everything. It's fascinating.
I think that's what makes it so good, is that it's something real that can happen.
Yeah.
Even though it's in this world, like you said, they have hyperspace and lightsabers and they can force push people.
Yeah.
I think it's what makes good stories, though, is they relate to the real world in some way.
Oh, I agree.
So some people might not have known. That's Star Wars. There you go. History lesson for you there.
Boom. Love it. Well, I got to say, one other piece of history, like that George Lucas tried to put in originally in the original trilogy, was to try to make, like you said, like kind of a fantasy thing, and lightsabers were supposed to actually be like swords, like long swords that knights would have used in medieval times.
Like really heavy is what I think.
Heavy, and that's kind of why the first duel we see in Episode 4 between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader is a little bit boring, because it looks like
not as good as their original.
They're using two
3.
hands, and so there's a huge thing, and they did get better in Episode 5 and 6. But when we get to see the lightsaber battles in Episodes 1, 2, and 3 in the prequels, I mean, there's nothing like it. They haven't even beat the lightsaber battles from the prequels in the 2 new movies that have come out.
No, they haven't. They've said.
But I will also say that in those movies, you have these people who did not get the kind of training that they got in the prequels. In the sequels, in the prequels, we have this whole organization of Jedi. They're getting like trained since they were kids, and they're becoming super skilled with lightsabers. And in the sequels, you got these people. Kylo Ren was trained. He did have extensive training. I don't think he was trained to the extent that other Jedi were in the prequels, though.
No.
So it's cool to see, like,
that's what I really love about like the prequels, like how you do is that the Jedi are in their prime, that they are the amazing lightsaber fights they have. That's what really got me in too when I was a kid, because I loved lightsaber fights. I still love lightsaber fights. I'll watch them on YouTube every now and then. Even if I'm not watching the movie, I'll be like,
thing ever.
Yeah.
So
and the Duel of the Fates comes
Duel
on.
of Fates is. Oh, I just pictured every time I hear it. Yeah.
They even mixed it into the fight with Anakin and Obi-Wan too. It's a little bit in there. A little bit of Duel of Fates.
I think there's another thing people will complain about is how quick Darth Maul was killed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, spoiler, he wasn't killed. But he was chopped in half. And everybody thought he was killed for a long time, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So another sort of prequel movie where you find out that Darth Maul is officially alive in the Star Wars like cinematic universe, if you want to label like Marvel Cinematic Universe, was Solo. Whereas Solo,
really fun
Darth
movie, by the
Maul
way.
just pops out, and he turns out he's the leader of this like crime ring now, and he's got robot legs. So
so he was that in the Clone Wars animated show. They did bring Darth Maul back, and that honestly kind of turned me off to the show a little bit. When they did that, I thought, oh, this is too... He wouldn't have come back, but I was wrong.
Well, how do you feel about it now, though? Did you like that he's back?
I'm excited that he's back, because the character just has a lot of potential.
Yeah. I tell you, one of the things, though, that I liked about him, that the Clone Wars, the show didn't really do him justice. The things I liked about Darth Maul was that he was very acrobatic, and he had double-bladed lightsaber, and he didn't really have that in the show. He had these really like robot legs. He wasn't very agile.
Spider legs at first, I think.
Yeah, he had like spider legs, and He wasn't very agile though. He wasn't doing all of his cool flips and stuff, and like that little cartwheel thing that I think it's Ray Park is the guy who was Darth Maul. Yeah, he wasn't able to do that in the show, and he didn't have the double-bladed lightsaber, which was mind-blowing when you were a kid. Just like, what, two lanes?
I wonder if there's a new Kenobi show that's going to be coming out either next year or the year after, probably. I'm not exactly sure, but with Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan, which everybody wanted. Woo! And I wonder if that's going to be playing a big role with that character. I wonder if that's why they introduced Darth Maul there. Maybe he'll play a role in the Obi-Wan show.
I hope so.
Because that'd be cool. Obi-Wan, if you don't know, chopped Darth Maul in half in episode 1.
I kind of didn't like that they brought him back was like him killing Darth Maul was like his thing that proves he's a full-grown Jedi now.
Because the only guy who defeated 2 Sith Lords.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also defeated Grievous. Grievous wasn't a Sith Lord, but
he was a big baddie.
Yeah, he was a big baddie, that's for sure. Obi-Wan, will always be my favorite character in this show, or in this series. And
he's your favorite in the prequels? That's your favorite character? Obi-Wan.
In the prequels, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, 100%, yeah. Why, who's yours?
I guess it's a toss-up between him and Hayden Christensen as
Anakin.
It's a toss-up.
Anakin's transformation is incredible, but they also make it so that you don't really like Anakin all the time. They kind of make him as
he does come across as a little whiny, which everyone.
But he is, and that's just he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be kind of he's supposed to be. He is supposed to be whiny and angry and resentful. Seeing his transition, I think Hayden Christensen nailed it.
I think he did too, and I guess. A lot of people, they had their own vision of what he looked like, but I thought he did pretty well. He got pretty built too for the third one. He was pretty muscular in that one, and he's not as tall as Darth Vader.
No, but they got him.
He's got robot stilts now.
Robot legs. Darth Vader is supposed to be huge. I think he's supposed to be like 6'10" or something. Yeah. Something crazy.
They got some giant dude to beat him.
Yeah, he's supposed to be.
Hayden did get to wear the suit though,
which is cool.
Episode 3.
Which is cool.
And I like too that their lightsaber fights, they're all real. They're not sped up or anything. Yes. Anytime Anakin and Ewan McGregor are fighting, that's them for real. They're not doing it.
They did have stunt doubles, but they all work together though.
I think though, it was just for like the stunts. It wasn't the actual sword fights. Anytime you see them, fight. Yeah, that's
even Ian McDermott, I think, learned how to fight. To an extent, obviously, he couldn't do what the younger guys are doing, but it's pretty cool to see some of the scenes of him learning how to fight too. And
I was watching the special features for that. I guess that's what you're talking about. Is they had originally had a stunt double in for him, and George Lucas was filming, and he was like, you know what, I need to see more of his face in this fight, and. So it was just like on that day, he was like, all right, well, you need to, he talked to the stunt coordinator. He's like, all right, you need to teach him to fight now. You need to teach the Emperor how to fight. And
it's such a cool scene when he starts fighting. But I want to get back to, the robot legs.
And
those legs. I just wish they hadn't cut out the scene, shortly after he gets upset with finding out Padme died, where the physical therapist comes in and teaches him how to walk with transfemoral
these transfemoral prosthetic legs. Yeah. And they didn't even wait for his residual limbs to heal.
I know. They had microprocessors in those though.
Oh man, state of the art, prosthetics there.
In the knee joint, there's definitely microprocessors. Yeah, and also. The amount of skin grafting that he must have had done.
That's another thing too, is I didn't see a lot of skin grafting before they put him in this difficult suit. I was like, they just stick that mask on his freshly burnt face. I was like, aren't you going to let that air out first? Aren't you going to let him get a little better and then start putting some lotion on or something?
No time for that, man.
There's some special non-alcoholic, lotion that they need for people who have burns. He didn't even get that. He was like, "You're going in the mask now."
Yeah, that's probably why Darth Vader's pissed off all the time.
He must have been a little mad too. He was like, how did you have all this stuff ready? Did you know I was gonna get burned? You had this black suit for me already? Well, yeah, you were gonna wear this.
Looks pretty sweet though, doesn't it?
It's 100% sweet.
It looks so cool. So anyway, yeah, fighting in Star Wars in the prequels is so awesome. And so first we start off with
it looks too choreographed. Is what some people say. It looks too choreographed. Like what they're doing is like a dance, and that you can tell that it's not a real fight. What do you think about that?
I don't know. Maybe I'm not looking close enough. I don't know. I'm enjoying it for what it is. When I just finished episode 3 earlier this morning, watching the Anakin Obi-Wan duel at the end of that movie, which is my favorite lightsaber duel. Just how violent it gets, where they just start punching each other and kicking each other. Like, it is so raw.
Yes.
I mean, it's two brothers fighting each other. Like,
Obi-Wan's on the
and
back
what's also cool about that
too.
fight. What's also cool about that fight is a lot of what Anakin knows is because of Obi-Wan. So to see them using like the skills Obi-Wan taught Anakin, and seeing Anakin use those against Obi-Wan, and they just kind of like bounce off each other, especially literally when they do the force thing and they push. It's like an identical move.
I love that.
And
I love that when I picked up on that when I was a kid watching in theaters. Like, he taught him, and that's how he knows. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think too choreographed. I don't know.
What I say to that is they're Jedi, and they know they have a little bit of like foresight. It's not even like years ahead, but like they can see like little movements and stuff.
Exactly.
And so even the fight with them, Obi-Wan and Anakin, I mean, like they already have sort of reflexes against each other. I'm sure they've sparred against each other 1,000 times.
They know what the other guy's gonna do.
Exactly. And they have this foresight and these increased reflexes from the Force, or whatever you want to rationalize it down to. So there are some moves. I think like when they're facing each other and they're just like flourishing their lightsabers like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And then they hit. People will say, "Well, that was dumb," but like I thought it was super sweet, and
it looks so cool.
It looks so cool. And I think they were just both. If you want to get so technical, I think they're both just like, what move is like gonna actually hit now? You know what I mean? Like, and they're just like, I think they're both just trying to like throw each other off or something, And like, I don't know. It looked cool though. I wouldn't overthink it.
I don't overthink. I think it's just it's awesome. It is so awesome.
Yeah.
And if you do it, I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
When Palpatine, they're in Palpatine's office when they confront him, and he makes the jump towards the 4 Jedi there. There are 2 moments when he kills the first 2 Jedi that are it kind of looks a little bad.
It's not good.
They're just kind of standing there, and he jumped, and he just has he just has all the time in the world.
He doesn't even try and like block. He just goes.
Yeah, I will say those 2, and then like when he faces, I think it's Kit Fisto and Mace Windu are the 2 like, the first 2 guys die, and then he turns and faces those 2, and then like they start like making contact. That was a pretty sweet sequence there.
Yeah, once
kills Kit. I think it's Kit Fisto, right? Kills Kit Fisto there, and then
the guy with the alien dreadlocks.
Yes, the alien dreadlocks. And then it's just Mace Windu and the Emperor. But before that, I don't know. In my head, I just like to think that they wanted it, like George Lucas wanted it to be that he got there so fast and he could just stab those 2 so fast because he was so powerful that like they didn't stand a chance. It didn't really look like that. It just kind of looked like
I think it looked like he landed a little quicker.
Kind of looked like he landed, and then like they all just stood there looking at each other, and he just like, yeah, there you go.
I thought his like, everyone makes fun of this, but his screaming twirl from the chair, I thought was sick. I thought it was awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was so cool.
Think that like twisty thing, because he had his lightsaber out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think it was ignited. I think that should have just been like like a drill into the first guy. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, that would have been so cool.
That would have been sweet. Like, don't even land, just and just like one guy's done from that, and then he lands, and everyone's like, oh crap, and then he knocks out another guy.
Yeah,
but I mean, I still thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great scene, and
I mean, look at the rest of the fights, and you're like, all right, this one isn't great, but then you know that this Ian McDiarmid, who's like a theater actor, you know, was told on the spot he has to fight now.
And like I said, other than that the first couple stabs, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's pretty good, but and Mace Windu wins. I mean, technically he wins this lightsaber duel, you know, which is awesome. Mace Windu.
Did he?
Oh, well, that's a good point. Did he lose on purpose to make Anakin make the choice, you think?
I think he could have sensed Anakin was coming. Or at the very least, I think he knew Anakin was going to come. Because Anakin was the one that turned him in, you know. And I think he knew, you know.
That's a good theory.
I think, you know, I don't know. But I
will say,
he's fighting Yoda. He's fighting Yoda at the end, you know.
Yeah.
The Emperor. And
Yoda's
numero uno with the lightsaber. So him against Mace Windu, I think,
because I've heard.
You
think so?
I think so. I think he knew Anakin was going to come.
I've heard Mace Windu's style. I've heard Mace Windu's style is like the most. It's a lot different than the other Jedi because he actually like lets himself kind of go to the dark side. Not the dark side, but he kind of lets himself like
feel some anger.
Feel anger. Well, yeah, and kind of generate more of an attack style where Jedi are supposed to be defensive. And that's kind of why he's known as one of the best with a lightsaber.
I think he's ranked number 2 though under Yoda. I think so. Which I love Sam Jackson.
Yeah, he's awesome.
In the Star Wars, you know, the prequel. He had to like beg to get in though. Like he wasn't originally supposed to be in it, and he was like,
he was awesome,
begging George Lucas to put him in. And then he got him in, and then he asked for a purple lightsaber because I even watched the special feature where he's telling him like, no, there's blue and green, and he's like, what about purple? And he's like, you might get purple, and then he had to wait to see it like on the first screening or something before he saw that he had a purple lightsaber. Oh, you know, because when he's doing all the fights, they just have those, you know, the fake ones. But I mean, like he's perfect. The scene where he comes out and Attack of the Clones, and he doesn't say anything. He just ignites his lightsaber in front of Count Dooku's chest, and he's like, "This party's over."
Yeah,
like it's such a Sam Jackson thing.
It's so awesome.
It's great.
By the way, can we just talk a little bit about that scene in Star Wars and Episode 2 in general? Episode 2 is known, besides the Last Jedi. Episode 2 was probably the most hated episode before that.
I don't get that.
I think it's a great episode. I think it's because of the love story, which needed to happen. It needed to happen.
I think. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But that last scene, when all the Jedi show up on Geonosis in the arena, was a dream come true for me.
Yeah, I don't get people complaining, saying that this movie's so bad, because I looked, because I was like, all right, there's already action starting. Once they enter the arena and they're fighting the monsters, it's like 30-40 minutes from the end. So there's like 30-40 minutes of just straight like gladiatorial action turning into Jedi versus everyone action into straight up like Clone War battle, which all 3 of those, and then the lightsaber fight with Count Dooku, Yoda with Count Dooku, which was sweet when I first saw that. I mean, like,
when Yoda comes in, let's just talk about that for a second. Let's just break that down for a second.
All right, yes, go ahead.
So here's Count Dooku just straight up defeated Obi-Wan and Anakin, you know, pretty easily.
We're very good Jedi.
We're very good Jedi. And here comes Yoda walking in with very slowly, like an old man with a cane, with a walking stick.
3-point gate pattern, I'd say.
Yeah, with a 3-point gate pattern. Step 2. And it's the first time we've ever got to see him really do anything cool. I mean, you know, we saw him use the Force in the original trilogy a little bit, but to see him use a lightsaber. Oh man! So he starts off by, Count Dooku's trying to throw these objects at him using the Force, and then he tries to Force lightning him, and Yoda just catches it,
that was sweet.
Sends it right back to him.
Well, then he absorbs it too.
Then he absorbed it,
palms it. He's like,
and then,
nope.
Yeah. And then I remember seeing this and losing my mind when he gets his lightsaber out, and all of a sudden he is just zooming across the screen, flipping. He's jumping off of the ceiling. He's just, it's the coolest thing ever.
I think it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and the music, I love that they have so much, vocal music too.
Yes.
And in the prequel, that picks up once he lifts up his robe to pull out his lightsaber, and you're just like, what? I still thought it was awesome when I was watching it.
By the way, the only reason Yoda doesn't win that fight is because Count Dooku tries to kill Anakin and Obi-Wan. Okay. Otherwise, I think
Dooku knew he was losing. He was like,
Yoda's going to win
down and run away.
Yeah.
He had no problem staying around to finish off Anakin and Obi-Wan. Right. He wasn't in a rush to get anywhere. Yoda made him rush to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That was pretty sweet.
Yeah. No, but I think the music has always been one of Star Wars's strongest pieces. What makes it so great.
Absolutely.
The music.
It's so iconic. The music.
Arguably the most. Music.
Everything John Williams does is just perfect.
Yeah. Almost like every baseball game you go to when they announce the away team. Probably, I don't know if it's the same in football, but if they make the announcements before you go to a game, but they'll put the Empire music on,
which is great music though. So it's why would you be mad about that?
Right. Like the dun 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 dun, and then they put on the light side music when the home team's announced. Dun 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 dun. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, the main theme.
But what we get in the prequels, like we mentioned earlier, is Duel of Fates, and it just creates just the perfect amount of excitement and tension. With you mentioned, the choral music was a great choice for that.
No, I don't think there was a lot of it in the original trilogy. I mean, I guess we'll pay attention to more of that.
And then it kind of goes into kind of more of a somber, almost sad kind of theme for episodes, kind of throughout episodes 2 and 3. Just kind of playing into Anakin and his turn,
and the downfall of the Republic, I guess, kind of the imminent.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Downfall of that.
Yeah,
that's what I noticed too. Yeah, it wasn't really as uplifting. Even the end of 2 was kind of a sad ending. Even though Anakin's getting married to Padme, then they show that Palpatine's sitting out there looking at his clone army and the Star Destroyers lifting off, and the lighting's kind of dark, and then the music was just kind of making you sad too. Before that, it just the end credits.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to watch some of these movies without any music, just to see what kind of different feel. It'd be so different. It'd be so different.
I think The Last Jedi actually has a feature where you can watch the movie without any dialogue and just John Williams music throughout.
Nice.
Which might make it a better movie.
For The Last Jedi?
Yeah, The Last Jedi.
Yeah, definitely for The Last Jedi. I like the music that he's done for the new for the sequels.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
I'm sure people will say that he's not done well on that. Or they don't like it, but I like Rey's theme a lot.
Yeah, we were listening to back at our apartment. We were listening to Rey and Kylo Ren's theme when we were cooking and stuff.
We may or may not have reenacted certain scenes of the movie, maybe a certain theme would start to play that would play at the end of episode 7, and one of us would turn around with our hood up, and the other one would grab a spatula and and just with his outstretched arm hold it toward the other one, and then the other would slowly turn and flip the hood off.
Perfect with the music. Perfect. That was great.
And then a couple of years later, we would throw that spatula over our shoulder.
I know the first time we were reenacting it, was before The Last Jedi came out. We were psyched for The Last Jedi, and we were reenacting that scene. And little did we know that they were just going to completely belittle it at the at the beginning of the next one. But I wonder if if that's how people felt though when the prequels came out, because everyone. But I love them, so I can't even relate to.
I can't relate to the perception of
the hate of it. No, I can see
the original trilogy. Like, we love the prequels.
Yeah,
and we love the original trilogy too. Don't get us wrong.
Absolutely,
but we didn't grow up with it like other people did.
Mm-hmm.
And having, but I don't think it was exactly the same, because I don't think people liked Phantom Menace right off the bat, and I think the prequels only got better from that.
Yeah.
Whereas I liked Episode 7 a lot.
Yeah.
I thought Episode 7 was really, really good. And Episode 8 was just extreme disappointment for me.
Yeah. I mean, I could go into that. Well, I'll save my thoughts, more on for the next one. But I can. But I, like you though, I liked the first one, and then I didn't like the second one. I think people had already disliked the Phantom Menace when they were watching Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
And not liking it. And I wonder if Episode 3 turned that around at all.
Episode 3, I still heard about say this. Episode 3 is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Out of all of them?
Yes.
Oh wow. It's a tie for me. And I'll tell you my rank. We'll talk more about our rankings at the I think when we talk about the sequel trilogy, we'll get into that. But Episode 3 is definitely my favorite out of the prequels, and it's definitely one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I think the action's great, the story's awesome, the whole tragedy part. It doesn't end with a happy ending, which is, kind of crazy. And then the fight, with him and Obi-Wan is and the emotional ending of it too.
Why do all my favorite movies not really end with a happy ending? I'm just realizing this. So, here are my favorite movies.
Okay.
Joker is now one of my favorite movies, by the way.
Joker
doesn't really end with a happy ending.
This murderer.
Yeah.
Murders people.
In fact, none of the movie was happy at all. Dark Knight Rises doesn't end with a happy ending. Batman wins.
He's on the run.
But he's on the run and he gets blamed for everything that happened. Not a very happy ending. Satisfying ending, but not very happy. Infinity War. Very unhappy ending.
Mm-hmm.
And Revenge of the Sith I consider to be one of my favorite movies. Although it's happy in a different way, because everybody knows how it's going to end.
Yeah,
everybody. I mean, Darth Vader is one of the most beloved bad guys ever, and to see him, you're actually kind of happy to finally this is the first time Vader puts on the mask. It's like, oh, that's awesome.
And I think what and how they do it is just perfect. Him fighting Obi-Wan in this awesome fight, and it's in this lava place. Volcanoes are blowing off, and they're fighting each other through all different settings. It's so cool. And then it ends with Obi-Wan, killing his surrogate son, or not killing him, but chopping off his legs and his other arm that wasn't already chopped off, and leaving him to burn.
They kill that scene every bit from when Padme gets off the plane or off the ship, when Anakin's talking to her, and then sees Obi-Wan in the background, till the last line Obi-Wan says to him, "You're my brother, Anakin. I loved you."
And it's heart-wrenching, yeah.
It's heart-wrenching. Perfect.
And Anakin's just burning, and he's yelling,
"I hate you." Oh, man.
You. He's just like a full rage monster at that point.
But you can just see how hurt. You can see how hurt Obi-Wan is by everything that's happened.
That's why Ewan McGregor is so universally loved.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
So there's a lot of rumors that there's going to be a Kenobi show. I think people have wanted a Kenobi show for a long time, right?
I think it's confirmed. I think
it is confirmed. No, it's confirmed. It is officially confirmed, and it's confirmed that Ewan McGregor is playing him. But for a long time, people were begging for it. People were creating fake fan posters I'd see on Instagram. Be like, "Oh, oh, this is fan made.
Yeah, so anyway, trailers.
They confirmed that it was happening. Not only did they confirm it was happening, well, after they confirmed it was happening, then it was like, oh, who's going to play him? And I just watched an interview with Ewan McGregor saying that like he was like the first person they called.
Yeah,
there was no doubt, but he had to keep it a secret. And all these rumors started that he was begging Disney for him to play. and he was talking. Did you see this interview?
Yeah, he would be on talk shows, and they would all ask him, "Are you going to be Kenobi?"
Right, and he would be like, "Oh, I'd love to be."
Yeah, because he couldn't say, "Yes, I am definitely." Right. We've talked about it.
Right, and so I've probably watched. I honestly watched this a little bit on repeat. His announcement of being Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah,
it makes me so happy. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen. I haven't seen it in a
while.
When
he comes out on stage, and everyone's going nuts just because he's there, and he's just like, "Ask me if I'm going to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again." And she asks, and he just like takes a pause, and he's like, "Yes," and everyone erupts. It makes me so happy when I watch that, and I love when I love when an actor loves playing a character so much.
Yes, I love when they're passionate about it.
He loves playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. He loves it.
I love that too. And how he even talks about how his lightsaber fights, they haven't been able to top in the new ones, and it's true. It's 100% true. They just haven't been able to top.
There wasn't even a lightsaber battle in The Last Jedi, by the way. Just saying. Yeah. There wasn't. There was a chamber scene, which was cool. It was probably the best scene in the movie in Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. And then there was the Force hologram scene, which doesn't count as a lightsaber battle. I'm sorry.
There was, at no point did two lightsabers make contact in the whole movie.
As far as lightsaber battles go, Prequels wins that one.
Absolutely.
10 times out of 10 right now. Hopefully Rise of Skywalker will have some awesome ones, and I wouldn't mind if it beat it, because I want to see some sweet lightsaber duels.
So if you wouldn't mind, rank maybe, let's say, your top 3 or 5 lightsaber fights from the prequels right now.
Number one, Obi-Wan Anakin.
2?
Probably Duel of Fates.
And that is with...
Oh, sorry, that's the one that they call Duel of Fates, is technically the one with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul.
Yes.
3, probably Yoda, Count Dooku.
Yeah.
Probably Yoda, Count Dooku for me, just because of the first time we see Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
4, Anakin, Count Dooku in the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, and 5, Yoda, Palpatine.
Okay, I'd say mine's pretty similar. It's a real toss up though for me. If it's Anakin, Obi-Wan, or if it's Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul. It's a real toss up.
The one I've seen on Reddit, people were arguing between those two as number 1.
It's so tough because I remember. I think everyone's trying to make the coolest lightsaber now and try and make it all tricky. Kylo Ren's lightsaber had the hilt, and then you see like the Inquisitors and the other Star Wars series, how they have these spinny things. And now Rey in that trailer has a flippy double-bladed.
By the way, that's totally a vision. I'm calling that right now.
It's not real. There's no way. In the final movie, she's going to turn dark side? No way. Anyway.
She should have already turned dark side. I'm sorry.
If they were already planting seeds, though, they better not Daenerys Targaryen us with her. Anyway.
It's sad that that's a term now.
It is now. Yeah. And but yeah, it's one of those two. Right now, just because I just saw it recently, I'm going to go with Anakin Obi-Wan. I mean, it's so great. It's emotional. I think the fight, I love watching Obi-Wan just be on the back foot the whole time as Anakin just rage charges him the whole time. And like you said, how it gets brutal. They go hand to hand. And then, yeah, I'll go Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan fight, especially when Obi-Wan comes out and just goes toe-to-toe with Darth Maul. And it's just like... sweet. And then I don't know. I'm gonna say Yoda versus Palpatine, not because it's the best fight lightsaber wise, but I think it's like the most sort of
best
fun
against the best.
It's like if
it's the heavyweight. It's the heavyweight.
It's like if Sauron ever got the fight
Lord Voldemort.
Lord Voldemort. It's Lord Voldemort versus Dumbledore, or
Gandalf.
Gandalf versus Sauron, or Sauron versus Aragorn. We never got to see that, so I'm glad we got to see Yoda go toe to toe with the Emperor. And I love the scene.
Like we wanted Luke Skywalker to go head to head with Snoke, but that also never happened.
That would have been great, But it would have been great. But then I remember the scene where Yoda walks in and those red guards are standing there, and he just like
tosses him against the wall,
just knocks them out with the Force.
What do you think was going through those two guards' heads?
I don't know. They're like,
those guards spend their whole day praying Yoda doesn't walk in that room. That they don't want Yoda to walk in that room.
They're the Emperor guards, and I think that we've never seen those ones fight, but I think they're supposed to be on the same level as combat as we see in The Last Jedi with those Supreme Leader guards. I think they're supposed to be really good at fighting, and then
they never
goes in and just completely trashes them with one hand. I remember being in the theater and everyone laughing at that.
I laugh I laugh every time I see it.
I laugh every time I see that. I laugh. And then him, the Emperor, just fighting. I mean, it's great. And he's like, if so powerful, why leave? And just Yoda's been great the whole way through. That is one constant, whether it's been the prequels, sequels, or original. He's been amazing. So that's why that's my number 3. And get to see them use their Force powers. It's great. And then man.
By the way, I've seeing them toss those
the senator
cart things that they can float around on during hearings was so cool too.
Yeah, just completely trash. I wonder if it was supposed to be symbolic too. Not to get too deep, but like now we're just tearing down the Senate.
Get deep, man.
I don't know, but I liked seeing them throw things at each other really hard though too.
Yeah, that's what I like. I like seeing them force throw big objects at each other. And Yoda even put a little spin on one.
I know when he throws it at him really hard, and Yoda catches it, and the Emperor's like, and then Yoda just he's like, I'm gonna throw a curveball with this now, and the Emperor's like, ugh, and he bails off. That was great. And then so that's 3, and then probably a similar end to either 4 or 5 is Yoda versus Dooku, and then 5 would have to be, or not Yoda versus, it would be Yoda versus Dooku for 4, and I'll go 5 Anakin versus Count Dooku.
What are some honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions would be Anakin versus Dooku in Attack of the Clones, where.
Yes, I like when he gets 2 lightsabers.
When he has 2 lightsabers, and then I like how they cut out the power, and it's dark.
Yeah,
and you just see their
cool sequence.
Lightsabers,
their faces.
Yeah, you just see the light on their faces. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Cool way to film that.
What about you? Honorable mention. Grievous. Would he make it?
Grievous is one. Yeah, Grievous on Utapau is one. Even though that turns into not a lightsaber duel. It starts with a lightsaber duel. It's actually really very little of a lightsaber duel.
I know, it's not very good he starts out being real menacing, and then Obi-Wan cuts him off immediately. It's
pretty awesome though for Obi-Wan.
He's just too good is the thing. At this point he's fought Count Dooku twice. He's fought and killed Darth Maul. I think he's in his prime. And he goes against Robot Man.
Yeah, Obi-Wan's had some tough losses though. Obi-Wan is not a good match for Count Dooku.
No, that's his kryptonite, is Count Dooku.
Man,
the scene where he gets choke thrown by Dooku in Episode 3, and then he lands, and then Count Dooku brings a balcony onto him, and just kind of crush slides him a little bit. I was like. That hurts my hip watching that.
Oh, yeah.
It lands right on his hip and just sort of smash grinds him on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Not good. Not good.
Not good at all.
But it's a really good sequence, though. It's a really good lightsaber sequence. And Count Dooku Count Dooku's badass, by the way.
Yes.
He's a pretty sweet bad guy. It's weird how late they introduced him in episode 2, I noticed. I don't think I ever picked up on that. He's just kind of introduced, and all of a sudden he's this bad guy, like, all of a sudden.
Yeah. That is one thing. Once you're used to the movies, you don't even think about it, but then I remember, the first time I see it, he's out of nowhere. He's this bad guy that everyone had talked about Count Dooku. They had talked about Count Dooku at the beginning. Padme, like, oh, maybe he was the one that led the assassination attempt or whatever. But you're like, who's this Count guy? And then you see him at the end, all of a sudden he's talking to Obi-Wan. And you don't even know that he's like a Sith or a Jedi or anything until he says he was Qui-Gon's master. Which
is cool, by the way. I want to point out that Qui-Gon, part of the reason he wasn't on the Jedi Council is because he was a little bit of a rogue. He didn't really abide by he didn't believe in all the rules the Jedi had.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of what influenced him by, Count Dooku when he was his master. Kind of influenced a little bit of that in Qui-Gon. And I think it was like a little bit of a good thing, because I'm not going to say that Jedi were perfect in all their ways by any means.
If anything,
Qui-Gon was still like a really good person, had good values, and like believed in a lot of the things the Jedi believed in. But he also didn't go as extreme as a lot of the members of the council did.
No, they were so, set on not being involved and being, the Jedi way that, I think like Mace Windu kind of helped push Anakin towards the dark side. Because, I mean,
100% agree.
Mace, rightfully so, knew that Anakin had this dark in him, the dark side in him, and he didn't trust him.
Hey, look, from if I was on the council, my point of view would not be to put him on the council.
Yeah,
but and if Anakin was the most skilled Jedi around, there's no doubt.
Yeah. In Episode 3, he probably could have. I mean, he wipes out the Jedi Temple. So he's good at killing Jedi, and
the only thing that helped Obi-Wan beat him was Anakin's arrogance.
Yes, and I think
Obi-Wan kept playing.
Part of the reason too he was able to last so long against Anakin was that he had trained him, because Anakin kills Count Dooku, and Count Dooku just sort of laughably throws Obi-Wan off to the side. So that's like, how does this matchup work where Obi-Wan beats him? But I think the only reason, like you said, is the arrogance. And Obi-Wan also, I think, knew how to fight him. He'd been fighting him probably for years with, practice swords or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, dude. I love the prequels.
Yeah. So they're great, I think. And lightsaber fights, the music comes in.
And just the being able to use the new technology that they had in film to make everything look so real. And honestly, it doesn't look as real as new movies that are coming out. But for the time,
a lot of it holds up, though, even today.
Episode 3, it holds up really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some stuff in episodes 1, maybe a little bit in 2 that look kind of weird, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But they can do so much more, and they make the Jedi do more, make them fall from crazy heights, and the planets look so cool. Exactly. One thing, when I rewatch the prequels, it always makes me want to play Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Battlefront 1, but Battlefront 2 is a little bit better.
Yes.
Just to get in those worlds, go to Utapau or go to...
there was more diverse worlds in the prequels. Yeah. Because in the original trilogy, they could only film in real locations. So we only get to see ice planet, desert planet, forest planet. And, and this one we're like, what about
city
weird...
planet.
Yeah, a full city planet. I liked seeing that. What about a weird, that the one where the clones are killing that blue Twi'lek Jedi female?
Aayla Secura.
Yeah,
that's Aayla Secura.
That weird bubbly planet. It's in the game too. Battlefront 2. That's it, Felucia. Like, I liked seeing that, and that's what I don't get.
We only see
it
the new movies, but it's cool. Yeah.
That's what I don't get from the new movies, is we're not seeing any cool planets. They're just like, what about another desert planet? Yeah. Do you like desert planets? How about 3 more?
Yeah. This one has red sand. It's a salt, right? I think it was salt.
This one's a salty sand.
Yeah.
Anakin would like this sand.
Yeah.
It's not coarse and it doesn't get everywhere.
Doesn't get everywhere. Yeah, but the prequels do an awesome job. Mustafar, some of my favorite planets. Utapau is pretty sweet.
I liked how Mustafar was in Rogue One. That's like where Darth Vader's base was at. I loved seeing that in Rogue One.
Yeah. Not that if I was Darth Vader, I probably wouldn't want to go back to Mustafar. Didn't have a lot of great luck there, but
there must have been.
They brought him back to He brought him back to Coruscant to get fixed, by the way.
Oh, they did, yeah.
I think so. It looked like where they were carrying him before they fixed him.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think so. And two, I guess we can kind of talk about they're kind of prequels too. They're not the prequel trilogy, but then Solo and Rogue One, both before the original trilogy and both after the events of Episode 3, Order 66.
Yeah, let's start with Rogue One.
Yeah, Rogue One.
Think of Rogue?
Great movie.
Loved it.
That's what also had me going hyped for Star Wars for The Last Jedi. Was I saw Force Awakens? It was good. They made Rogue One, which I was expecting to just be like a real generic cash grab sort of crappy movie, and I thought it was awesome.
It fit in there like a puzzle piece. Like it was meant to be there. It was so good.
It felt like,
and it answered questions. It answered all these questions I had. Like, why would they build, like a weakness like that? Like, why
exhaust port that so easily
was put there on purpose,
blow up the whole place. Yeah.
So I love that, like that storyline by this guy who was forced to be. He was a good guy, but he was forced to work for the Empire and build this battle station. And
one thing that kind of, tricks me up, though, seeing that is like the Geonosians from Episode 2 were the ones handing those plans. So I guess maybe he was just working on them more, or maybe he helped them out.
Good point. I guess my idea of that was...
They should have hit on that, though, I think.
I think my idea of that was maybe this was just a concept. Just like with anything.
Yeah,
like,
they just had a plan. But a giant thing that blows up
roller coasters. People who make roller coasters are gonna start with a model that they make. It's just an idea, That's how I rationalize that with the Geonosians handing that over. It was just kind of getting a concept going of a battle station.
Yeah, and Jen Erso was like the engineer that had to figure it out.
We don't know that Geonosians didn't build the Death Star.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Probably not, but or supply the parts or something.
Yeah.
That's another good example of a cool planet with cool creatures that live there.
Geonosians. Yeah.
Just the ones I like. Kashyyyk was cool. Kashyyyk wasn't like anything super special, but it was cool. And then, it does look cool, Kashyyyk. And then, if anybody doesn't know, that's where all the Wookiees live.
That's Wookiee home, everyone.
Wookiee home. And the battle. I remember that's one of the things in the trailer of Episode 3 that got me so excited for Episode 3 was seeing the Wookiees were going to have a battle.
Yeah, the Wookiees are going to fight.
That I needed in my life. And it was great. It was great.
And then it ends with them, Chewbacca sending Yoda off. And then I guess, you see later on in the movie, the stormtroopers checking on all the Wookiees. I guess they're kind of wiping them out then. They turn on the Wookiees then, and they're wiping them out. They're enslaving them, I guess, because then, and you see in Solo, Chewbacca's a slave. And I guess that's how that happens. So I thought that was pretty cool how they all tied together. I'm always happy when they tie together.
Yes.
I know that they try to, but when I see it, I'm just
Rogue One tied it together so nicely. And also just an epic Darth Vader scene.
Yes. Oh my gosh. When he's standing there at the end of when the alarm's going off, and then all of a sudden you hear the and then red lightsaber ignites. I thought they were going to just cut it there. I was like, they're going to just tease us with this and the movie's going to end because all the heroes were dying and all that stuff. And then he just goes ham, and he just starts cutting those guys. And I just turn to my brothers, and I'm just like,
yep,
just tapping on them. I'm just like, oh, we're watching this. It's happening.
Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this right now?
It was amazing.
Yeah, that movie it's just exciting. It doesn't, the crew we follow the whole time, like, spoiler alert, just the fact that none of them make it out alive.
I remember watching interviews for the movie, and the cast kept asking, "Well, are you going to come back for another one?" And they all had a lie, I guess, because they were like, "We don't know. We hope so."
We hope so. Yeah,
they're all dead.
Cool. Not a lot of movies end like that.
See that scene with Vader wiping them all out, and then just getting little teases in Episode 3 of Anakin. You see like the hologram projection where he's like choking one chick with his hand and fighting off another guy with his lightsaber when Obi-Wan's viewing it, and like, oh no. Yeah. And he that's where he finds out that like he was denying that his Padawan had turned to the dark side. But anyway, you're seeing Anakin just wipe out the temple. That's what I would just like a prequel movie where Anakin goes. You just get to see the beginning is just him marching on the temple, and you actually get to see him, wiping out some Jedi, and then the rest of the movie is like him hunting down other Jedi as Darth Vader.
Cool.
Which is
it'd be cool. It'd be weird. It'd be like the Joker.
it would. He's
gonna win. The bad guy's gonna win.
It would be great. Yeah. I mean, and you know what happens in the end. We all know. I mean,
we do. But, I'm just Solo now.
Solo.
I thought Solo was a really fun movie.
I thought it was great.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, it didn't do super well in the box office.
No, everyone was blaming that on.
Deadpool came out the same week.
Deadpool 2.
Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2. And then, was that right after Last Jedi came out?
Yeah, and I think Infinity War might have been close to this too. Yeah, I think Infinity War was before Deadpool 2, then Deadpool 2, and then Solo.
Not a great time for releasing Solo.
And The Last Jedi came out like the Christmas, the December prior to the summer where Infinity War comes out, Deadpool 2 comes out, and then Star Wars Solo Story. And everyone was saying, like how you said, the box office was low, that the reason Solo didn't make as much was Star Wars fatigue. But like we've been watching Marvel movies back to back to back, and they've been raking it in. I don't think Star Wars would get that fatigue. I think it was because The Last Jedi sucked.
I think that, and I think people didn't want to see another person play Han Solo because I think that Harrison Ford is so iconic as Han Solo, and then I gotta say the guy who played him, he did a great job.
I thought he was
not.
I thought he did good.
Harrison Ford by any stretch of the imagination, but he took the role in himself. He didn't deviate too far from who Han Solo is, and I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah, he didn't feel like he was pretending to be Harrison Ford either. He didn't, but he felt like he fit in. Chewie was great.
Lando was really good. I thought Lando was really good.
Oh yeah, Childish Gambino.
Yeah, Daniel Glover is Lando.
Daniel Glover, that's his name.
Yeah, and then it was a fun movie, and I thought it was going to be kind of a standalone, real quick, fun adventure, and then they tie in Darth Maul at the end, and I was like, here we go.
And that's where we've seen from that he's still alive in the movies then, because they had said Clone Wars were canon, but I was like, but are they? They're like,
but are they? Right.
But are they?
So I'm interested to see where are they going to go from here with that. I haven't heard any talk about it, so I'm thinking maybe the Kenobi show, because that would make sense.
I think so. I told you what I thought before is I thought that because they had originally, when Solo was coming out, they had originally planned a Boba Fett movie and then a Obi-Wan movie and not a show. Mm-hmm. So I think what they had intended was that those were going to be all their own individual movies, kind of like how the MCU has Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man. And I think they were going to have those as their own standalones, but then also have Darth Maul be like, I guess how you could say like the Thanos that or the Infinity Stones that sort of appears in all those stories, like because he was a crime boss in Solo. He's in charge of like the Black Sun or something. And then I think what was going to happen was in the Boba Fett movie, which was supposed to come out next, is that he was going to be like the boss, and then you'd see him and Boba Fett interact. And then at some point, you know, then the Obi-Wan movie, then Darth Maul would come and we would see him finally dispatch him for good. But we'll never know. And maybe now in the Kenobi series, which is going to be technically a prequel as well.
I was got a question about when we see Jango Fett, who is a Mandalorian, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did you think about this? Where we're watching the new Mandalorian show, and one of the things that the Mandalorian says as part of like his religion is that he does not show his face. He never takes his helmet off in the presence of other people.
Yes.
So I thought it was interesting.
This is the way.
This is the way that Jango Fett has no problem showing his face.
So that makes me wonder then, did he stop being a Mandalorian then? And that's
what a couple things I thought. Maybe Jango Fett kind of deviated from being an actual Mandalorian and kind of became his own person.
I think he has Mandalorian roots though.
He's Mandalorian roots. No, I know he's a Mandalorian, but maybe he stopped following by the Mandalorian
code. I think he might have been at once though, and sort of left the clan. You know what I mean?
Right. And I'm thinking possibly that, or something happened with Mando from the Mandalorian show to his people when they were like slaughtered by droids.
Yes, another prequel tie-in right there is this meaningless war that was going on, like how I talked about earlier.
Yeah,
you know, it's basically one guy trying to, you know, gain dictatorship, and they ends up killing up the family.
These innocent people.
Yeah, this innocent people that makes Mando.
Yeah. So he then he became a Mandalorian after that, I believe. Right?
Yes. Yeah, it was after his family was killed. He was not a Mandalorian before that, it looks, because he was living
the way they
full
make it sound.
naked, not naked, but no armor. And his family his parents didn't have armor on.
Yeah, so maybe
they might have survived if they were Mandalorians against droids.
Maybe Jango just kind of stopped following a Mandalorian code.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's
kind
just
of on his own.
He wanted a kid too, apparently, you know, because
he got the clone.
He asked for Boba Fett to be his clone. So I think he just, you know, was like, I don't care. I'll be a bounty hunter and do whatever. But, you know, who knows what happened to him? I think Jango Fett is a really underrated character. I think he's better than Boba. Because
Boba Fett's an extremely overrated character.
Exactly.
Well, I think Boba Fett just
we didn't see him do anything.
We didn't see him do anything. He
with Jango, we see him
follow them to Cloud City. We'll talk about this more in the
we'll talk about that in the next
sequels. And then he gets killed in a really silly way. But
but Jango goes toe to toe with Obi-Wan. And then he kills another Jedi that's coming up to kill Count Dooku. And then he kills that giant bull thing, and I mean Mace Windu makes short work for him, but I mean that's Mace Windu, you know. So
it's Mace Windu.
So I mean, yeah, I love everyone complains, not everyone, but there's been a lot of hate around the prequels. I think, you know, obviously people now know that we love them, but I think, you know, the big things though is they made this whole universe that's shaping all these other future things, like the show The Mandalorian. It helped, you know, Order 66, where all the Jedi were wiped out, really influenced, you know, this period of, you know, no Jedis, and really helped other like shows and games sort of design this time period where, you know, Jedi being hunted and things like that. And
did you have
the political stuff? And
did you have the Episode 3 video game?
No, I didn't. No, you told me about it though.
Oh,
I had Battlefront 2. We still have Battlefront 2.
I still have Battlefront 2. That's my all-time favorite video game. And just so people know, I don't play video games anymore. I had a PS2, and that was where I stopped. And every now and then I'll go back and play Battlefront 2 and Revenge of the Sith. The Revenge of the Sith feature film video game I got to tell you, man, it had amazing lightsaber like battle features. Like it was super cool to play. And you kind of go between playing Obi-Wan and Anakin throughout the whole movie in the video game, and they'll go to like throughout the movie they'll kind of go on other adventures on these planets. And then one of the scenes is Anakin going through the temple and killing the other Jedi. It's one of the hardest levels because instead of just facing droids, you're facing the other Jedi. Right. And it's so much fun. I want to go play that level right now. But then he like fights like one of the big masters you have to fight, the bosses you have to fight, and at the end of the level is one of the main Jedi teachers, and you never see him in the movies, but like they create this character for the video game. Yeah, and he's super hard to beat. He's like this super cool Jedi. So it's cool. It kind of breaks down a little bit of the.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the prequels do. That I think they don't get enough credit for. They flesh out this world. They flesh out. All we had seen before in the original trilogy was, the dirt, the ice, and the green planets, and there's a rebellion and an empire, and that's all you know. It's simple and it's great, but there's not a lot to it. And then the prequels here, I mean, there's Jedi, there's a bunch of them. There's this galactic war going on, where there's two well-funded sides, and not just a rebellion versus the supreme entity of the galaxy. It's two well-funded, evenly matched sides, and there's a lot to it. So, like I said, I think it's a must-watch for Star Wars fans. I think you already have to be into the original trilogy before you see this. I think if
you've never watched Star Wars again. Yeah, never watch Star Wars again. Don't start with Episode 1. Like actually, you would start with Episode 4.
Yeah, you should go 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and then maybe 4, 5, 6 again, and then 7,
and then 8, 7. Don't watch 8, and hopefully 8, 9 will be really good.
I actually my brothers, my youngest brother, he's 10 years younger than me. We'll probably have them on the show at some point once we get rolling here. But I started them out going in chronological order, since I had gone through, with release date order, seeing 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3. So, but I started them out with Star Wars with 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6.
So, what was their reaction when Anakin turned to the dark side? Did they know?
No, they didn't know. So that was surprising for them, and they thought that was like the big twist for them. Because then they knew that they had already like an awareness of Darth Vader and Luke, I think.
But the big twist is like when Anakin chops the hand off. Mace Windu's hand off then, right?
When what?
That would be the twist, right? And if you didn't know that Anakin became Darth Vader, would be probably the moment would be when Anakin decides to chop Mace Windu's hand off.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that's the moment?
Actually, I don't remember. I mean, I knew that they were aware of some of Star Wars, even though they hadn't seen any. So I wasn't really watching their reaction, I guess, to that. But yeah, I don't know. I'll have to ask them. I'll have to ask them about that at some point, though.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about the next one, we'll talk more about the big twist. But I guess, yeah, Anakin, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'll have to find out, though. But that's how I had them watch it, and I kind of regret it. So if you're anyone listening to this and you haven't watched Star Wars and you've made it the whole way through here, then you need to go 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3.
And also, there's just a kind of thing where when they made 4, 5, and 6, they didn't have the technology that we have now. So it's almost like going back and I don't know. You know what I mean? I feel like it'd be better to start with the ones that don't look as real and don't have as much in them. Because I will admit, Episode 4. I mean, it's the first Star Wars, and people might think I'm crazy for saying this, but when somebody starts watching that now compared to the ones that are out, it's just a little bit lacking.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about more in the next one, but it's probably actually one of my least favorite. It's not my least favorite, but it's one of my least favorite.
My girlfriend didn't like it at all. Like I said, when we watched it, and it made me nervous that she wasn't going to like any of them, because it's like, this is the original Star Wars. I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong, but then she loved episodes 5 and 6. So now I'm excited to show her these prequels.
Good. Get her on those. I'm getting Tay into them, and we'll watch the original ones again, and so she can be all caught up and organized sequentially is definitely what she needs.
Yes.
Well, we're at I think we're at about 2 hours here. Do you have any other thoughts or anything? Or
I think I'll probably always have thoughts. So we'll probably wrap it up now because we'll probably jump right back to the prequels when we start talking about the original trilogy.
Exactly.
And it's hard to talk about one without the rest of them.
Exactly, and especially how we said the release date of them they're all kind of built on each other in like this different way than it is like how the MCU is very sequential, you know. So you kind of have to talk about all of them when you're talking about one trilogy. You kind of have to get to all of them.
So we'll next episode we're going to talk about the original trilogy, and we'll break that down a little bit, what we think, and
then we'll see the Rise of Skywalker, and we'll take a little break for Christmas, and then we'll get back on it. We'll talk about this sequel trilogy.
Yes.
Again, it's the Screen Chronicles, and we'll probably, I mean, we're going to release this on a podcast, you know, so wherever you get your podcast from, get us on there, and then YouTube, we're going to be releasing it on, and then
follow us on Facebook, Instagram, that great stuff too.
The social media will be at the Screen Chronicles is where you'll be able to find us. Okay.
All right. Now, Steve and Colby signing off.